let's look at what you can do when a strong emotion arises that really takes you over, so that with mindfulness you can behave more appropriately. So this is an extract from a webinar about halfway through an 8-week course with a group of students. And in it, I'm going to show you how you can lean into difficulties with curiosity, how that's a really quick way of kind of releasing the hold that emotions have on you. And then I'm going to show you a 4-stage process I call LALA, which helps you really process things quickly so that you respond in a more appropriate and caring way. So let me talk about the difficulties. First point really to make is that we avoid difficulty. When strong emotions arise, our natural reaction is to protect ourselves, and we can do that either by fighting back or by avoiding, running away, fight or flight. And that happens very automatically. It happens before the thinking brain, as we've discussed before the thinking brain kicks in. So these are threats which are registered in the amygdala. They ring a bell for the hypothalamus, and that releases stress hormones. It actually inhibits the thinking brain at that point, floods your body with chemicals. You react, and there's a very quick cycle of the stress trigger, the automatic reaction, the habituated response, and then that is feeding into the hardwiring, the habitual response into the brain. So what we're really looking at here is halfway through that cycle, where you've got the automated chemical effect in the body. The emotion takes on physical form. It's very strong, it's very quick. With mindfulness, you can give yourself that tiny gap where you become more aware more quickly that this strength of emotion has arisen, and you can make a choice. And you can make a choice to act with kindness, for example. So it's about becoming quicker. But the other thing is not to avoid dealing with those emotions. Now, this can happen at an extreme level, or it can happen at a kind of background level. There's often a sort of background hum of dissatisfaction or mild depression or mild anxiety that's kind of running in the background. And for myself, I know that if this doesn't get addressed, or it could be anger, or it could be many different emotions, that if you don't address that, as soon as it occurs, or as soon as you really become aware of it, then it can just carry on all day, rumbling in the background, dragging us down. So by far the quickest way of dealing with this is to lean in, which means you recognize the emotion is present. You give yourself the time and the space to actually fully experience it. And what you're actually fully experiencing is the physical sensation. As I said before, all emotion is embodied in a very physical way. And if you just bring your attention to that, to the tension, to the holding that you're experiencing, and just use curiosity to explore it like a scientist, what you will find is it begins to change and dissolve. And it can be very, very quick to actually release those kinds of tensions. And you got this relationship between the mind and the body. If you can actually deal with things on a body level, it will free up the mind. So that's the bones of it. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Susanna, yes. Okay. So that's the leaning in, using curiosity, that slight stepping back, bringing attention to the physical sensation, exploring the physical sensation, allowing it to dissolve, and try it, see what happens. I'd say this is a top tool, really. Okay, so then the reframing is employing that kind of proactive positivity that we've talked about before, that we are hardwired to notice the negatives. As human beings, we're hardwired to be on the alert for threat. So it's very easy to not appreciate all the lovely things around us. And I'm looking at the flowers in the background here and just having all these wonderful books and having a nice glass of water and just being aware of everything that's supporting us. You can just take it for granted. You don't notice it. You're hardwired to notice the difficulties. So reframing is a very proactive activity which says, yes, so-and-so said that and it hurt and it had this effect, but actually maybe they were trying to say something positive, it just came out in a slightly difficult way. Having compassion from where they're coming from, and turning around the impact on you, actually learning from something and saying, okay, that was uncomfortable, but actually, yeah, that's the positive side of that is I've learned, I'm going to do it better again. Actually, I've got a colleague or a client or whoever made that comment who actually cares, so you can just start to interpret things in a positive way. That's the reframing. And I've got this kind of silly acronym called LALA, which is the first L is the listening out, listening to your own body, recognizing the emotion arising and the physical sensations that come from it. The next A is then about acceptance. So acceptance is not resignation. It's not being a victim. It's just saying, this is what's happening. And without trying to fight it or avoid it, but rather to face it, to say, this has happened. It is strong. And I'm going to work with it. The second L is learning. So that's when you begin to employ your thinking brain. So you process that experience. And the final A is taking appropriate action. So that's where you've got that little gap of choice between the immediate physical impact and the response that you then make. So have a look at that. Do try it out. It's good to rehearse it when things are not desperately difficult. So if you do have any of that kind of background worry going on or whatever it may be, employ it with that. You could try it right now. If you tune in right now, I'm doing it as I'm talking. I can feel a slight anxiety. Just look right at it. Identify where that's being held in the body. So I'm feeling a bit of tension around my chest. I'm just actively letting that relax. The emotion is gone. So do it with this slightly milder stuff as a practice run. Lots of background noise, just muted. Okay, yeah. So there we are. How does the background noise affect you? Is there an irritation running, perhaps? That's not a bad thing. It's just interesting, and explore it. So, if that has affected you in some way, where in the body something will be tightening up if there's irritation. So great example. Great opportunity. In fact, with listening practices, hearing practices, you call it sounds to work with. So that was kind of in the middle of a 20-minute webinar. If you want to see what's in the courses that you can get as part of the membership, have a look at the link on screen. Meanwhile, please do subscribe. Thank you. Bye.